pretty much, if you have a dream, you have anything in your heart, a passion, go for it. Just be open. Put yourself out there. That's something that I'm doing right now. I'm building my brand. I'm realizing that I am a brand. You do have value. You do have a lot of things that you can teach people. So whatever that gift, that talent that you have, be open about it and help other people.
One of the biggest expenses for them was boarding the dogs.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that as a challenge, right? But they said the cost to board the dogs is actually keeping her from taking the trip. And I said, well, by all means, pets are part of the family, a big part of the family. So we've extended our mission to, when I talk about extended family, I'm including the pets as well. So we boarded the pets. The family came here for the weekend, and he sent me a text with a picture of the family, and he said, thank you so much for bringing my family to me.
Wow, that's awesome.
When you hear about the level of suicide among our veterans, there's no one thing that's causing it, but a person's self-esteem is so critical. And so now these young men and women are going back to their home when they joined the military, the same environment, pretty similar to the environment they left, where there's not a big job market. And now they're having to figure out how to develop themselves in that area. When you get up in the morning, you want to have a sense of purpose. You want to have a sense of belonging, and you want to know that you are making a contribution to your family and to society as a whole.
And I'm here live with Cheryl Campbell, and today we're here at the Eagle Force Warriors Foundation. She's the CEO and Chief Executive. She has a phenomenal background. She went to Georgetown University, studied at the School of McDonough of Business. She went to the University of Maryland, and she went to school in Barcelona. And it's an honor to be here to speak with her today, and we're just going to sit down, we're just going to talk. So first question for you is, where are you from? What's your background for people who may not know who you are?
Sure. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm Cheryl Campbell. I'm a native Marylander. I'm a proud Marylander. I love to say that. But go back 4 generations. I am the youngest of 5 children. My father was a World War II veteran. He and my mother had since married and had 5 kids. He really built our life around doing construction. And I had original plan was that I was going to go to college and become an accountant and come back and be the back office for the construction company. And it turned out that I took my first computer science class and got excited and and I never turned back. That was truly where my passion has been. I ended up getting my degree from the University of Maryland. And at that point in time, there were very few that looked like me in my classes, and in the job market, there were very few in technology. Okay. So I was very excited to be a part of that industry. Really didn't know exactly where it was going to take me, but in life, you take those first steps. You have to figure out, along the way, you find that those steps take you in a certain direction that you had not even envisioned when you started. But the first thing is to take the first step and get excited about those first steps.
Okay. So my next question for you is, for people who don't know, what is the Eagle Force Warrior Foundation?
So the foundation itself, we love to say it's veterans helping veterans, and starting out with how do you help, continue to help our veterans be successful. Our government does a great job, but I always say the strongest of the strong need a little helping hand on occasion. And as we are all out there telling our servicemen and women, thank you for your service, I felt it was important to go to the next step. and helping those veterans. And so the Eagle Force Warrior Foundation has two primary missions. First of all, it's around air and ground transportation for the extended family to get to the bedside. Quite often when someone has been injured or wounded and they're at, for example, in our local area would be Walter Reed Hospital. And the cost associated to get the extended family to the bedside is very, very expensive. And so by regulation, our government pays for one family member. And if you think about that, I always love to tell this story about, you think about the enlisted person who's between the age of 18 and 30, for example, who might be married. Now, the family gets the call that their loved one has been injured. Now they look around the room and trying to figure out, okay, who are we going to send? Is it that young spouse? Is it mom? Is it dad? Or what about the children? Right. And so we actually provide the air and ground transport to take that burden off of the family to have to make that decision, to get the full extended family member to the bedside, because we think it's important for that individual's recovery to have that support system at the bedside. So that's one aspect of what we do. The other one is that as these individuals also transition out of the military, we all recognize at some point in our lives where the challenge associated with transition, and you're trying to now take a person who their entire career has been in the military. Now they have to position themselves for something in the civilian sector. Right. How do you help them through that process? So we provide transition services associated with resume writing, thinking through a strategy for moving into the interview process for a job opportunity and so forth, and really kind of helping. And it's not just the veteran. We look at the whole family nucleus, right? We also think about the extended family in that process as well.
Okay. So just like looking at your background and your education and everything you've done, seems you have a passion for health and helping people. Where does that stem from? Where does that come from?
I think part of it is in your DNA. How you were raised by your family and so forth. And as I mentioned, one of the reasons I started the foundation focused on veterans, because I saw what my father, being, as I mentioned earlier, World War II veteran, he was with the Army Corps of Engineers, which meant he learned construction. He was when he left to go into the military, he was a farmer. His dad had a farm. He knew about farming. He knew nothing about construction. He goes into into World War II, learning a trade. He came back and he started a construction company. Gave him an opportunity to now be an entrepreneur, and as well use those skills that he learned in the military back into the civilian world. And I wanted to do something similar for our young men and women as they transition out of military service, to help them think through a strategy so that they can be successful when they're back in their home base. Right. I think secondly, when you hear about the level of suicide among our veterans, there's no one thing that's causing it, but a person's self-esteem is so critical. And so now these young men and women are going back to their home when they joined the military, same environment, pretty similar to the environment they left, where there's not a big job market. Right. And now they're having to figure out how to develop themselves in that area. When you get up in the morning, you want to have a sense of purpose. You want to have a sense of belonging, and you want to know that you are making a contribution to your family and to society as a whole. Right. So if there's a way for us to help in that way, in that fashion, and for my husband and I have been married for a little over 30 years now. Okay. He was a former Navy pilot and degreed from FAMU University in physics and math. And so he has a technology company, and we've both recognized that you can do well by doing good. And for me, it's always been what's important for the bigger society and not just for me as an individual. So I can tell you that building large software development systems for big corporations on a national scale has been my background historically. Very proud of those components in my life. But I can tell you that right now, being able to get up and help a young family as they are struggling and challenging themselves and move forward is by far the most rewarding aspect of what I do.
That's my next question for you. Can you walk me through that, a family that's struggling, straight out the military, jumping into, quote unquote, people say the real world?
Sure.
What is that process like?
So I'll tell you a quick story because it's the most current ones, which sometimes is always good. So I have a young man that he was over in Afghanistan, and he was part of his job responsibility was to defuse an IED. In that process, it blew up, and he lost significant capacity in his right hand and limited capacity in his left hand.
Wow.
He's at Walter Reed Hospital. He's a young man that's under the age of 30. He's married with 3 children and 2 dogs. Right, so the wife is in North Carolina at Camp Lejeune. Okay. He's a Marine Corps guy. She's at Camp Lejeune. He's here at Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland. Okay. She's in North Carolina raising 3 little children, ages 6 months to 2 years to I think a 5-year-old, and two dogs. Okay. And he's going through a series of surgeries.
Right.
And so I said, when's the last time your family's been to see you? He said, it's too costly for them to come up. And so, I'm, getting through it on my own. So I took care of this past weekend to have his family come up for Valentine's Day and for President's Weekend, right? So wife and 3 kids. And so now we're actually expanded the foundation to include pets.
Okay.
Because they said one of the biggest expenses for them was boarding the dogs.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that as a challenge, right? But they said the cost to board the dogs is actually keeping her from taking the trip. And I said, well, by all means, pets are part of the family, a big part of the family. So we've extended our mission to, when I talk about extended family, I'm including the pets as well. So we boarded the pets. The family came here for the weekend, and he sent me a text with a picture of the family, and he said, thank you so much for bringing my family to me.
Wow, that's awesome. So one thing I noticed on the website, it said that, the government does a great job of helping, warriors, wounded warriors or veterans. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of like many unmet needs. What do you think are those unmet needs that still need to be addressed, that still needs to be done?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's a lot of great organizations out there that are helping to fill the gap, is what I call it, right? And it ranges anywhere from housing to helping individuals transition, to transportation, to recently I've met an organization that helps families, wounded warriors. They take them through like an 8-week weekend golf camp, right? So they're teaching them the game of golf, but it's really helping them reestablish themselves into society. It's getting them out of the house. It's all those other things that you don't recognize are critical for a family when they're trying to start a new normal. And so there are many great organizations out there that are helping to fill those gaps. By regulation or process, our government does a very good job of helping to mend some of the physical aspects,
right.
But there's still some challenges on the mental side.
Okay.
And so there's still a need in those areas for people with PTSD and so forth to continue to move forward.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, you have a phenomenal background. You've accomplished a lot. I've seen you got recognition. You won some awards for your hard work. How does that feel to get recognized for your work? Because I feel like, there's a lot of people are trying to probably do the same thing you're doing, don't get the recognition. So how does that feel to be recognized for your work?
So recognition is one of those things where you have to keep it in context, right? So you don't want it to become sort of the thing that drives you,
Right.
because those are, you start to make decisions that are not really the right decisions because you're making them based on something that is false and not really sustainable, kind of thing. I think it's important, as we all contribute to society or contribute in our workplace, for our families and so forth. It is nice to get to be recognized for an accomplishment or something that you've done. I actually think as we as individuals, you as a family, you should celebrate your successes as well, because you only get one shot at this journey, and you should enjoy it along the way. And it's really nice to sort of pause and recognize that you maybe have done something that no one else has done, or you've been able to impact a set of individuals that are in need, and the importance of doing that. So it's a nicety, but you quickly park it and move on to the next great thing or the next thing that you need to do, because there's always something more that needs to get done.
Right. So I have to ask you. I know you guys. That's a fun question. I know you guys do golf tournaments.
Yes.
So I know in basketball you play 1-on-1, and whoever scores the most points wins. I don't know how it works in golf, but have you and Pam ever played against each other?
First of all, so one of my keys to success is to know your competition.
Okay.
Right? And I'm sure you know that in basketball as well, right? And so the fact that I know that she has played significantly, I played very little. Yeah. I know who to pick for a competitor. It would not be Pam for golf. Okay. That would not be the case, and that would not be the sport. I think if I had to do a sport that I was going to compete with someone in, it probably would be tennis for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
So tennis is your sport.
Tennis is more my sport. Yes. Okay. Yes.
All right, so that's a fun question I went throw out there.
Well, that was safe. I didn't know where you were going with that, but okay.
So my last question for you is, what advice would you give someone who, in your shoes, coming up, starting out, and want to be where you are today? What advice would you give them, just that process of getting to where you are?
So there's a couple of things. One, I say patience, but then also be anxious to continue to push yourself to go further. Don't rest. This is when you're young, you're trying to figure out when you're in your 20s, and then what's the definition of young these days? So when you're starting out in your career, right? You want to challenge yourself to learn as much as you possibly can, and then as you're doing that, you figure out the thing that really excites you, and once you lock in on that, then hone that craft. Be very good at whatever that is. And then to expand yourself from there. Okay. I think it's important to recognize what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. Continue to expand your strengths, but also how do you continue to shore up your weaknesses as you go along. Okay. And do self-assessments along the way. How am I doing? Is the conversation I'm having or the time, how I spend my time, is it leading to something beneficial and fruitful as I move forward?
Oh, that was really good. Actually, that was not the last question. Another question popped in my head. So your husband is a veteran, right?
Yes, he is.
What's that like, being a wife or married to a veteran? What's that experience like? So
I'd love to tell you that I know the answer to that question, but I met him just after he got out of the military. So he did a little over 8 years as a Navy pilot. Okay. And when I met him, he had just gotten out of the military. He had his own first air charter company that he established for himself. He used to fly. He's someone you should also interview, because he actually, when Reverend Jackson was when he was running for office as president, my husband was his pilot, and he's flown Colin Powell, Margaret Thatcher, when she came into country on a number of occasions, she asked for him specifically.
Wow.
So he's flown a great deal of dignitaries over his career, and but his real passion has always been in the tech field of technology. Well, being an aviator is a good passion, and he's very excited about that, to be a flyboy, as they call them. But also being technology focused, which is why he now has a technology company. So I can't say exactly what it's like to be a military wife.
Yeah.
So I could speculate and give you some ideas, but I don't have firsthand knowledge on that side of the equation.
Okay. Well, any last words? Any questions from the audience, Pam?
No, I think she spoke very well. I mean, and you don't have to have been by their side as the military wife. They bring home the veteran experience, and you experience that part that every wife experiences that's married to a vet. So.
No, I agree. I think there's, whether you've gone as part of their career as a veteran, when they are no longer part of the veteran community in that regard, as the spouse of, there's still a connection. First of all, it's a very strong community, and there is a pride that you have married someone who has served, and the joy of what that brings to the table, the commitment of that individual. I think it says a lot about a person that you meet that has served their country. There's a certain level of character that comes into play when those individuals have stepped up to the plate.
Right.
And quite often in the military, you are taught discipline. You're taught respect.
Right.
You're taught certain aspects of, as a human being, you would want to have in your life. Right? So there are many benefits of being associated with someone who has served.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This is great. Again, it was an honor to sit down with you and to learn more about your story and your journey. Pretty much, if you have a dream, you have anything in your heart, a passion, go for it. Just be open. Put yourself out there. That's something I'm doing right now. I'm building my brand. I'm realizing that I am a brand. You do have value. You do have a lot of things that you can teach people. So whatever that gift, that talent that you have, be open about it and help other people.